Hello, good morning, and welcome to our Land-Led Schemes webinar. Joining me is Andrew Markham. Andrew, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Christopher. Good morning, everyone. I'm very well, thank you. Very good.
See some really
Sun is
great
shining.
familiar names here turning up. Bob Pleasance from Onward. Hello, how are you? Claire Orpwood, hello. Yeah, lots of really great people here who I haven't seen in a while. Andrew, what are we doing today?
That's what I'm going to ask you. What are we doing today? No, I think we're doing land val. We're doing some residual land value. Look at it from a little bit from the private perspective. I can't speak this morning. And view, and we're going to do a kind of a little bit of a PowerPoint just to just show you kind of a an overview, and then we're going to go into land val and just run through a kind of a basic scheme and what we can look at, gross margin, residual land value, and the mix, what we can play around with and see what that triggers at the bottom line. And then we'll kind of look into Proval, I think, if we get time. But generally, depending on the questions, what people want to see, what they want to ask, and we can try and make it a little bit interactive. This is kind of slightly different to the other webinars we do, that we can stop, have a little breathe, and we can just run through one of our products and show you it and ask questions. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so you're all here because you're interested in land-led schemes. So we're really going to dive into this. Is meant to be an interactive workshop, so please do let us know what struggles you're facing, and we'll focus on any of that with you. But Andrew, if you'd like to get started.
Oh, right, okay. Right, so I think first of all, let me try and show my screen. I haven't done that already, have I? No.
Yep, we're seeing it
Oh,
now.
I am doing that. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
That's a good start, isn't it? Didn't even know I was. There you go. So let's introduce myself. My name's Andrew Markham. I head up the new business team at SDS. I'm a director, but more importantly for this, my background is development. So been involved in development for a number of years. I used to be a land buyer. So I've been on the front line, purchasing land, doing Section 106, doing negotiation, doing option agreements. So that's my kind of expertise, and still enjoy that. Still do a bit of development on the side, and so still involved heavily in appraisal work with clients. Love kind of negotiating, chatting about viability, and trying to kind of get it into a real scheme environment. You know, what's actually out there. So how best to use our software to kind of get the answer that you want, because there's a number of ways, obviously, to do viability and skin a cat as such. But one of the most important things when we get into more land-led schemes is obviously purchasing land, and that's important. So I was just going to go to, I thought it would be quite nice actually to start here, and you can see for SDS, I've been at SDS 12 years. As I said before that, heavily involved in the private sector. So it was a kind of a whole new world of kind of affordable housing, which has obviously changed over the years and becoming a little bit more commercial, I would say, in their operation and their view on viability. And that's only to improve people's experience. And SDS, worked alongside with David Shelton, is trying to improve people's experience, knowledge of viability, and we as SDS have put kind of good, robust software that supports that activity. So one of the main things that we had and have is LandVal. LandVal is our would initially say is our private sector model. Okay, so it does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you a residual land value, fairly straightforward, but quite powerful in what it does. So and that's what I'm going to show you today. It's been around since the company's been around 27 years, still in Excel actually. And we've moved our main product Proval into a database, but LandVal has stayed in Excel because it works very well on that platform, and we don't need to kind of do much changes to it. There will be some changes. We are moving all our software into the cloud, so that will be one of our products that will go into the cloud. Hopefully, some kind of testing early next year, maybe towards the end of this year, but perhaps more like next year, because of lovely COVID has delayed stuff for everybody. So LandVal, back of the fact packet. The first thing we need to do is buy land. Proval is more of an investment model. Sometimes in the big scheme, you can use Proval to do a residual, frustrating for land buyers, people who kind of are more focused on purchasing land, that you're looking at this over a period of time. So there's a lot more inputs, there's not much more knowledge on finance that you need to get that position. But they're our main viability products. So what I wanted to do, now this is my challenge, Chris, this is where it goes all wrong. I'm going to change screens, okay, and I'm going to try and get to this screen here. Aha, that may work. See, does that work? Great. Can you see?
Yes. Yep. All good.
Right, good stuff. That's the first challenge done. Right, so what I thought we'd do is just run through a little kind of this to focus the mind. And I was looking at private development. Okay, so private development is what we're going to look at on here is about sales profit and the gearing effect, and I kind of explained that. I'm sure you're all experienced on that, but I'll go through that in a kind of nice way. And I just wanted to kind of highlight this is a kind of a slide that I've had around for years actually, and it's still the same because it's still true. The main difference between well, what is the main difference between private housing development and affordable housing? Although, you know, yes, this has changed over the years. A lot of affordable housing developers are doing land-led schemes, outright sale, you know, shared ownership, etc., etc. But the main difference is the exposure to sales price. Okay, so private housing has a much higher sales risk. Okay, so selling properties is that's the risk element that comes in. What's the value of that property? And always we're trying to sell at best price, and that is the kind of main element that speculative development has to grapple with. Okay, so it has to be aware of. So there's two main ways we look at this. So I'm going to slurp a coffee. Please ask any questions. It's quite nice on these to be a little bit interactive. Anything particularly you want to kind of focus in or ask. Right, so what we're looking at here is two main models, two main areas. We're looking at the residual land model and we're looking at the profit model. Okay, so at the top here, we've got the same, we've got the sales income. Let's start on the left here. You've got the sales income, you've got our left, we've got our less of our costs, we've got our costs in here, we've got our profit that's in there. So we're putting our profit in here equals our land value. Pretty straightforward on that view. On the right hand side, we've got the same, but this is looking at the profit model. So we're looking at the kind of income that we're putting in here, less our cost, then our land value. Difference here, we can put a land value we're trying to achieve, and that will equal our profit. Okay. It's always the developers tussle between these two positions. You know, it's always that cushion of what you require from the different departments here. Greater kind of risk in sales means more profit is demanded. If the sales price is not known or you're struggling to understand that, then you put a kind of a higher gross margin. So, you know, in there. But we must buy land, mustn't we? So if we want to do a development, we have to buy land. So it's always that kind of push and pull between the two elements and what is going to work for you and understanding the risks that are involved in doing a speculative development scheme. It's not easy. It's not easy to understand what the sales price is. Clearly, we all have a view on this. We can all do our own evidence base. We love our kind of evidence basing, and we always go into what's reasonable. But we always, in any viability, that we look at values today. Too often you see people saying, well, next year is going to be this, in 6 months' time it's going to be that. We don't know really what's going to happen in the future. So we only know what's happening now. So valuers would always value things now. And sometimes in areas where there's not many comparables, it's quite difficult to value. So they'd be very cautious. So you have to provide a lot of evidence of what the values are going to be. But, you know, valuations, doing appraisals, doing viability should be done on what you know now, today. And that's what we're going to do. So what we say here, so what happens, small differences in prices have a disproportionate effect on your land or your profit. So this is the term that we call is the gearing effect. Okay. And the gearing trap is obviously what you get stuck in. You know, you see here the little frog falling down the hole. But anyway, a small change in sales price leads to a disproportionate change in value of land. Okay, we'll see that. And similarly, if the land price is fixed, then a small change in sales price has a disproportionate effect on our profit. That's what slides. Okay, and this example I've got next kind of shows that quite nicely. So what we have here is we have a sales price on the left hand side, 250. We have a build of 125. This is where our gross margin, so gross margin is what we expect we're going to be wanting from this scheme. So gross margin can mean a number of things for an organization. It can mean profit, it can mean interest, so it can include that, company overheads, and it most importantly it covers risk. So if we said we've got 20% here, then we have got a £50,000 in profit or gross margin from this scheme. So our land value is 75,000. Now we kind of run the model over and we say, okay, there's going to be a 5% increase, decrease in that sales value. So our increase looks healthy. So our sales price goes to 262,500. Our bill is the same. We're still getting 20%. That's what we're pushing into it. So that goes up to 52,500. And then you can see what happens in the bottom line. So our land value, what we could have paid, if it went up by that price, we could actually pay an increase of 13%. If, however, let's look on the other side of things. If we got the sales price wrong, not that house prices have gone down, but if we got it wrong for our estimating, our evidence basing, and we were 5% wrong, our actual sales achievable price, what we do is 237,500. Build cost is the same. Our gross margin obviously goes down because it's 20%, it's 47,500. But look what happens to our land. You know, it's a 13% swing both ways. So that is quite dramatic. A 5% change, which is fairly a small amount, you know, of especially estimating and getting things, but has a 13% effect on our land. Okay, so that's quite dramatic. Let's change it over and let's say, okay, let's look at the other way. So we've got here sales price, again, 250. We've got a build, but this time we're saying our land. So this time we're forcing our land in to a set price. So we're saying our land is worth 75,000, gives a gross margin of 50,000. Again, we've got the 5% decrease increase. 5% increase to our sales value. Same is 262,500. Same build cost. We're fixing our land price. So the bottom line is 62,000 above our 50. So we've got 62,500, which is a 25% increase on our first position, our gross margin. But again, look what happens to our gross margin if we got a 5% decrease. So again, you can see here that, you know, getting the sales price, getting your offer, you know, what you're going to be selling these units for at the time you're doing it is very crucial, and it has a big effect on the things that we are doing. So again, remind ourselves here the two options that we have. We have the residual land, which is then kind of equates to our land offer, our sales price, our costs, fixing our profit equals our land value. The other way around is our profit model, which is then saying our sales income less our costs, fixing the land value equates to our profit. Okay, so that's what I wanted to kind of just start with, so you can just kind of focus on that, and I'm going to model that now in land val. Probably not any questions at this stage, but
no,
if there
nothing's come through yet.
That's good. That's all right. Okay, so right, I'm now gonna let's attempt to do this. Right, give me 2 secs, and let me stop sharing for a little bit. How do I do that? Yeah, is that done it?
No, we can still see it.
Oh, really? Okay. Let's
click on the stop button to stop sharing your screen at the top of the sharing panel.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yep, easy done. We know how. Right. Okay, good. Sorry, give me 2 secs. Right, and I'll go down to this one here. Right, 222. Right, here we go. Is that one? Can you see that? Can you see? What can you see?
I can see
land
a
value?
blue screen,
Oh,
but
right.
blank blue screen.
Oh, God. Right. How's that?
There we go. Land Val's now
Okay.
appeared. We're in Land Val.
Right. Okay, good stuff. Right. Sorry about that. So land value looks like this. As I said, still in Excel, playing around with screens here. And the front panel there is telling you what to do. Okay, go into either a new one, existing one, sorry, start a new one, open an existing one. You've got a database in there as well, so you can actually put your standard house types in there just to saving you time and kind of start getting the base detail of a scheme in there. And you can set some defaults as well, okay, in there. So it's going to help you do things. We're going to start a new one. So we're just going to go to new. And this is one of our large clients, Persimmon Homes, has used this for a number of years. And I've actually recently kind of taken that version, unpicked it slightly, and now we're offering this to our clients. Okay, there has been a kind of one before that, which was a little bit of square meters in square foot. This model that I'm showing you is in square foot. So all those people who don't understand that, get your calculators out, and then we can kind of convert it back. But this model that we're doing is in square foot, okay, because obviously it was geared to the private sector and they work in that aspect. So I'm just going to kind of open up literally a blank appraisal, and I'm going to kind of walk through what I was replicating here. There's some of the kind of the headings at the top here have kind of gone out because of my screen sizes, not anything to do with the software as such. So at the top here, we got these different kind of sections. So these are the various sections that we're going to put some information in, and we're going to go down to a land value here. And then we can have a look at the sensitivity, we can look at some reports, and we'll look at some detail. And literally, I'm just going to kind of run through some of this stuff and listen to if there's any questions, and we can go into a bit more detail. But the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to put some basic information in here, which we do in development. I'm in Guildford, so we're just going to kind of use that as a base. The first thing we're going to look at is what space have we got to put on our units on. So we're just going to go with, I don't know, we're going to go with 5, and we might have 4.8 as a net area. So we might have, 5 acres, but we might have kind of, some trees, and the actual developing area is reduced, so I can look at the net area. We can do multiple versions of this, so we can kind of, you can do testing on things. You can put some information in here, and you can say, look, Mr. Greedy owns the land. That's generally the case. We're going to set some stamp duty on here. Don't worry about that for this. And we're literally going to kind of put in some basic information in here just to show you what we can do. This is going to be a house. They're actually all going to be houses, so I could use the copy and paste and just paste these in here. And we're just going to do some houses. Okay, so we're going to maybe do, this could be a 2-bedroom house. Yeah, let's do the 2-bedroom house. This is going to be a 3-bedroom, and this could be affordable. These ones, actually, we could say these are our affordable type, and I'm going to put affordable housing on the top, and just keep it very simple. Square footage on this, so you do your lovely kind of 70 times 0.929 to get back to, or divided by 70 divided by 0.929 to get to our square footage. Okay, that's 753 on a 70 square meters. So let's just call it 70, and that one's 850 for a 3-bedroom, and we're going to do the same just for this example. Value, as we said before, value is really important. So your view on value. Now I'm looking at these are going to be our sales units. These ones are going to be affordable. You've got 5 in view. You can do a lot more. Pages 2 and pages 3, you get more columns. So you can do kind of split quite a few columns on there. I think it's 64 different columns you can do on total. So there's quite a lot you can do there. So you can either put a sum or you can put a square foot value, and we'll total that up for you. So I could say, let's say our 2-bedroom house is 280,000. Okay, I am in Guildford, probably is a bit more than that, but anyway, Let's just keep it something like that. And you can see the square footage underneath, so the value per square foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the question comes is, okay, how are you going to value these affordable housing units? They're to clearly, you know, you're going to be purchasing these, or be RP is going to be buying them for you, or they're your own. So what I would do there, if you do have ProVal, is then use ProVal to give you these answers. I would look at the kind of the net rent plus your grant over the kind of period that you want, 30 years, 40 years, at this kind of discount rate, with these kind of assumptions, will give you your net position over the 30 years or 40 years, whatever you're doing, plus your grant subsidy will give you your value. Okay, so I can show you that in a minute. I thought we'd go through the land val stuff first, and then if we got time, we can then go back into ProVal. So if we said, let's roughly have done this earlier on, top of my head, let's say it's worth 170 and this one's 190. Okay, and you can see the kind of difference in here. So you could, if you knew roughly what's going to be getting square footage sales price, you could say it's 300, and we give you the, yeah, so we've got that kind of twist over. But let's just go back to what I said. So there's a basic information. And then we have, again, we have two ways of putting in your build costs. You can either do it as a square foot on this, or you can break it down by substructure, superstructure. You can put some contingency in here. You might have some other costs that you want to do, and you put some contingency in, and you're done in that level of detail. Or you can simply see what I'm going to do is roughly going to use a figure that I know is roughly about right. So 150 a square foot, and then you can see the totals. I can then obviously put my contingency if that's way out, just to cover it, and I can put that in. You can, oh, didn't mean to do that. You can do substructure, superstructure. So you could use this bit of all your costs if you want to. You don't have to break it all down. If you're doing a quick back of the fag packet, you know what your costs are, you know roughly what it looked like. Does this work? Put it all in here. So you can really layer it. It's up to you if you want to layer it or not. So you can go into more detail, put a higher price in, because then you've done a lot of the work. You can see what we're calculating now. You've got your GDV. Nothing's been totaled because I haven't got a number of units in there yet. The one thing I wanted to kind of just touch on is obviously the difference between the two. So here is your value. So we've got our build cost minus our sales value minus our build costs is this value here. And you can see the difference between the different products, which is quite displayed there. Then we have this thing called plotting density. Okay. Some people use this, some people don't. Not. It's really saying to you, how many units can you get on 1 acre? And you can do the little maths of how much this property unit needs garden space, side space, and that would be your area, and you can see how many you can get on an acre, and that will give you a density. So we could say that this is a kind of a smaller unit than that one. We could say this one can actually get 10 on an acre, and this one is 8. And we can use the same kind of density on the other units as well. So we've got our bigger unit down here, and our smaller there. So you can then give you an idea of what you could achieve on a full acre of those properties, and you can see the values here. And interestingly enough, not always is our bigger unit getting the most money per acre because of space. And you can see that this one is our smaller unit. If we've fitted those in because of the space, we'll get more return for our buck. Okay, so a lot of the kind of national house builders use this to actually really define density and units that are actually on a site. In this model, we have the ability then to kind of identify that as affordable units. So in here we could say whether they're shared ownership or whatever, they're affordable. Okay, so in the reports that we do, a couple of things we can do in this one is that we can give you kind of some summaries of those different affordable units and sales units, and also we've got a sales area where you can do a golden brick payment, which will be copied into the cash flow. So it just gives you that little bit of view of actually seeing the information. separated a bit, which is quite nice. When I saw this, I thought, oh, okay, this is quite a good idea that Persimmon wanted. So we've kind of unpicked that and used this as our standard base now. And then I'm just going to put some kind of units in here. So we're going to do 10 units of each. And you can see at the bottom, we can see our percentage of each of the columns. And you can then see our GDV at the top there. We've got our total construction cost with our contingency, total units, and you see your percentages underneath. So quite nicely, you can see then trying to get to your, 30% compliant, 40%, 50%, I don't know, whatever kind of fence you sit on. I'm just going to keep it at that. And then this is what we can offer. So once you've done a little bit of work of understanding your plotting densities, maybe with your architect, you can then see coverage. So here you can see that this units are going to fit on this site, and it's going to go to 94%. You're trying to make it 96, 94. You want to give your architect a bit of scope to fit this in, but you're more kind of saying to your architects or designers, this is what we want on the scheme, go off and design it, because that's viability wise works for us. And that is controlled by this position up here. So if I change that to less 4, then you can see this will probably go over 100. There we go, 113%. So I can then reduce my units to try and fit that on as best I can, because my area is being reduced. And then that would work the other way around if obviously you have more space. So you can see that here. Okay, so that's quite a lot of the work that we've done, and we could do that in minutes. We could do that really quickly. I'm just kind of walking through it fairly slowly for you so you can see it. And then we have our other costs or professional fees. So you may have it in the total construction cost, and you can bypass this, and you can quickly get to your gross margin, quickly get to your land offer, and we can kind of move on. But let's just kind of see what we're looking at here. So external development, all these overheads, technical fees, are all defined in detail if you want it on the right hand side here. So
We've
if
got
we
a
go
couple
back
of questions, Andrew, whenever you're ready.
If you read them, if they're worth kind of talking now, or if I'm going to cover that in a minute, then you tell me.
Well,
I'll tell
to
you.
begin with, if you appraise affordable units in ProVal, would you enter into land val as a total, including all tenures and size units in one column? If not, how would you suggest the affordable units are entered?
I would split them down. Yeah, depends how you view it. If they're different, if they're 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and they've got different values, I would like to see them individually, because we're working on mix. What we're trying to do is get the best mix to support our land value. So that's what the idea. But if you can do it both ways. So if you've got a bunch of flats and it's 5,000 square foot, you can put that in, and you can put a total. You can see it as one column. So there's a number of ways you can look at it from different aspects of what you're trying to achieve, and to view it. Okay. Yeah. So
Accuracy, but this is one for accuracy, isn't it? You like razor sharp accuracy, hence why you will split down everything.
well, this is offering for your best assumption. So you're not completely sure of everything. So you're putting things in that you know. What you want to be really quite confident in is the sales price. As best evidence you can, get a whole market appraisal. And it's not just, it depends where you are. If you're a local authority selling outright sale, RP, are you going to get best value from a private developer? Maybe not. Have you done a market appraisal to see how many units are going to be coming to the market at the same time? What is the spread of units in that area? There's a whole raft of questions that supports that value, and not just what your valuer would say. Do your own market research, get confident on that. Don't be emotionally involved in it. Look at it objectively, and I think that's the key thing. We get too sometimes emotionally involved in our own units that we're developing. Yeah.
Can you trust valuers? We're putting a lot of trust on them, aren't we, right now? And let's face it, they didn't do great in the past, did they?
I always struggle with valuers, but anyway, I think they always will be conservative because it's their neck on the line, I suppose. But that's what you pay for. That's what banks and funders need. So you're stuck with it, I'm afraid. But I would do my own evidence, because you can. There's a lot of research out there you can do from your desktop. and then you can find out. The soft market research is what's coming to the market at the time of your scheme. How many units have been developed in the area? You know, if it's a, you know, that's, those are real challenges, and that's where your gross margin is going to really help you or not. Okay. So external development overheads, they're here. What do we mean by externals? There's a whole list here. So you can see here, there's an example of costs, you know, from kind of landscaping for highways improvements, drainage, these kind of standard things. This table here, you can self-populate. You can either do it two ways. You can go into detail. You can have a lump sum. You can have a measured quantities on here if you wanted to, or percentages. So you can either do that, or like I'm going to do is you can ignore that and say I've got £100,000 and that's my externals roughly. No, it's going to cover it. That comes into the appraisal. Abnormals, again, you've got abnormals in here, and then you can see, yeah, we've got to do some piling. We've got some poor land conditions, you know, so there's going to be some extra cost. So we can put in some contingencies on that. Each of these sheets have a contingency as well. So at the bottom of them, there's quite a lot of rows. You can see you can put in your own contingency. So there's quite a lot of scope for putting in what you think is going to happen, and then plus a contingency. Okay.
Okay. Andrew, one more question here while we're on this. I think it's fairly relevant. Does plotting density include driveways and half the road frontage?
Yes. Yes, it would include the side, the back, and the front, and half the road that's required for that property. Yes.
Okay.
So you can scale it for flats as well. So you can do it on flats if you're doing 8 flats and you need X amount of parking space, depending on the locality. So whether it's inner city, outer city, your parking conditions will change the density of that. So you can do that layering. Yes, takes a bit of work, but once you've done it, you've got your suite of properties, you know, end of terrace, mid terrace, semi-detached, those things. That's what the private sector do. That's what they get into. That's where it makes a difference between that little kind of couple of other units that we can put on this scheme, and allows them or you to offer on that land, because you're in competition. You're in competition to get that land first. Without land, you're not in business. So abnormals. So I've just done some abnormals on here. Then we have overheads. So again, overheads. And here we're looking at kind of, you know, site office, those kind of things, skip hire, kind of structural things. So you can have that in there as well. I'm going to leave that out.
Is 100,000 a likely cost for a site of this size?
No, I'm just making it up. Let's just putting in some values in there. No, don't challenge me on that. I'm just best part is making it up. We do that very well in development, in land buyers. We're very good at that, aren't they? So yes, I'm just making up for effect to see a value to go in there to see what will happen. Now we can look at technical fees. Technical fees, again, we've got a whole kind of a sheet there of your fees, and you can put that in, or you can go into detail about everything. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to my overheads, and I'm going to put a technical fees of 8%. So I've got 8%. This is all going to 8% of what? Well, 8% of our works cost. Okay, so we've got our 5.1 here, adding on from here, giving us our 5.1. That's our total. There's our total build costs. Then the nice part is, what is our gross margin? You can see here, pink is saying gross margin 20%. You know, depending on how you see the market, what is your end user, where are you in the country, how you see, that will either go up or down. But in difficult times or hard to read sales price times, then this value goes up. Okay, so your risks are a little bit unknown, so therefore we put more risk element into the appraisal. And our risk, again, to overemphasize, is our sales value. Yeah, so 20%. We can in this model actually say, well, this product we know kind of goes out the door quite well. This one, this is not, and this goes 8%. Okay, I thought there was a bit of an error going on there, but it's not. Okay, so I can actually define my gross margin for the different products that I have. So you'll do a lower margin on the affordable and a higher margin on your outright sale units, giving you a combined 17.8. I'm not going to do that because I just want to have the effect of 20%. So I'm going to do 20%. So I'm forcing 1.9 million into this scheme, and you can then see where we are at the moment. So sales value minus our cost, construction cost, and our gross margin is giving this value. Land abnormals, there's all array of things that can happen through the planning process, whether it's section 106, whether it's seal, whether it's SPAs, you know, lots of things. You can put them in here. So standard, if it's seal, obviously it's either a lump sum or you can do it by unit. So if it is kind of, I don't know, £5,000 a unit, you can see that's 200,000. If it's a section 106, I don't know, or a SPA payment or other, you can put it in here for say 20,000 or 2,000 for this. Okay, you can see that adding to there. So you've got a number of defined, user-defined elements you can add, which is your land abnormals. Okay, giving us our gross development value of X. Then we might have a property. So I don't want to labor on too much, looking at the time, saying, right, we can either add a property in here. We might buy this land. It has come with a property on it that we either need to refurbish because we're going to use the side to access the land, and we can add this to the actual appraisal. Okay, so we can have a net contribution to our land. I'll leave that out for this example. We've got our stamp duty, that's being delivered in there, and if it changes, because it does, we've got a table that you can change it yourself in this, so it comes through. So just keep it as it is. We've got our agents fees, we've got our legal fees, we've got our brown envelopes. Oh no, we don't, sorry, we don't do that anymore, do we? We've got our incentives that we do, working with our agents, estate agents, you know, whatever, however you get your land. No questions asked. And then
I think that's a good question, Andrew. If you don't get there early, you don't get the deal, do you? And there's a lot of people here who are looking at land schemes thinking, goodness, this is a nightmare. So I think there's a very real question there of what can you do? How do you get to land?
I think it's all about relationship building, isn't it? I think that's the key thing. And you know, working from the private sector, then coming into the affordable side, it's a very different beast. But the key thing about housing associations, RPs, they're cash rich. You've got money, so but you need to get to early to those pieces of land. Option agreements. You know, you've got a different social purpose. You can get that message across to the landowner, and as long as you can come up to the value, then I'm sure you have a slight advantage. But you want to be early to the schemes. You've got to take a risk on a couple of these schemes, and then decide which ones you maybe want to develop or which ones you may want to flip. If you've got the team to do that, then that's a very viable way of getting the best sites that you want. And the private sector do that all the time. So right,
they have whole teams just dedicated to hunting out land, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
yeah,
it. That's their only function.
Most option agreements are signed up 5 or 10 years before they come, come to fruition, and they will take a punt on that, or they would bring the landowner alongside with some kind of payment incentive to get them on board. So there's a number of ways of doing that, but the simple way, we looked at this. Now we are giving you a land value. So in a perfect position, we've got a mix, we've got our costs, we've got our gross margin. Here is a value. So this is what we should offer, giving that mix. Okay, so we're saying that the residual land, net residual land on this scheme is 1.6 million. But however, this scheme has been offered to you at 2 million. And you've done your numbers and you can only get to 1.6. And that's always the challenge. Okay, so what can we do? Let's just take that position as a starting point. It's been offered at 2 million. So let's park that 2 million. So here we go. We put that 2 million in. We now force that into being our net value, our land value. We can then go back up to the top here and go, if we had to pay £2 million for this site, what's that done to our gross margin? So our gross margin has gone down to 15.6. And you can go to your boss and say, is that acceptable? And he'll probably come back to you and go, absolutely not, it's too risky, I want a bit more margin than that. Or you say, yeah, happy with that, let's go and purchase it, or we can do some negotiation between that. But that's what this is giving you. If you then said, well, actually, what the private sector would probably do is look at the mix and say, well, we don't really want to do 50% affordable. We don't need to. We can get away with 30% or 40% or something a bit more better. We can then look at the mix option that we have per unit, and we can then move those to some more units that are going to make more money for us. Okay, so we can then, if it's an RP, you know, it depends on what you're trying to achieve, and what's going to be your development strategy. So on this example, let's just take kind of 2 of these as a simple kind of measure. So I've taken 2 of those. Let's put these as a nice mix, put those on here. You can see that actually we've still got 94%. I've just moved things around slightly, but instantly I've got a 40% coverage on this, and then the rest of them on the other ones. And then we can go back and go, oh, so that small mix has changed our gross margin quite a lot. Okay, so 19.6. But you could also, you know, then once it's all in there, you can play around with, say, well, actually, what will work between these? And because this is units earning us more than that one, that if we did take off one of those and put that onto here, we still got our 40. We still actually decrease some size, so we might be able to squeeze another one in here from that to increase it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it where we are, and then I can go back to here, and you can see here that it's again crept up slightly, but you can play around with the numbers. You can see that quite nicely on screen. So that basically is, you know, is our residual land position on this scheme. What we can also then do, we've increased our land offer to that when we've got our 20% coming in. So we're nearly kind of getting where we said, because we changed the mix. If we go back down to our cash flow now, we're looking at this as a kind of gross position. So we could actually look at this in the net. We can then go, our cash flow is going to start, let's say it starts in October 21. We got a borrowing rate of 5%. We can take out an investment rate. We got exchange of 10%. Then we can look at the kind of numbers and figures that we've got here. We can transfer all this into our cash flow, and we can give you a nice kind of detailed cash flow that's going down, that's over 20 years. And you can see the values that we need to spread. We can either quickly spread this by some kind of start month, end month, so we can get some kind of interest cost added to this. We can also look at the sales position, and we could kind of look at detailed if we've got a golden brick payment coming in at a certain time, and we can split that, and we can then separate our sales, our private sales to our affordable sales. I'm just going to keep it fairly simple and say we've got month 3 is when we are getting our land offer, exchange of contracts, legal completion, that stuff, and we're going to keep this just fairly simple, and then we're going to build it from 6 to say 26, so it's 20-month build program. And then I could obviously itemize our sales a lot clearer, but just going to be quick from this. We're going to go from 26 to 36, and I'm going to update the cash flow, and that will then spread the cash flow. I can hide the top, and you can see a bit more detail. So quickly, I can just get you kind of roughly a guide of what we're doing, which will then show us our interest payments each month. Yeah, we can see the totals adding up. One nice page printout of all the kind of costs and the recovering of the costs. You can see our sales hitting the cash flow, recovering our cost, and then we're going into profit down here. So it's quite a nice little cash flow, quite simple. In this, we can, if you don't like that spread and you want to change the values, you can just go in and type that over this, and then that value difference will be in here, and you can see the difference. So that cash flow is then transferred back into the front screen of LandVal, and you can see here our interest. So that is giving us our interest cost. So there was our gross margin, and that was our 20%. That's our now interest, and now we have a net position. Okay, so we have our net, and that's what it's done for our sales. And we can then give you return on capital employed, which is a common kind of parameter in the private sector. So return on the money that we've been using to get back, and ideally that we're using 5% for our borrowing. So, you know, our marker should be a lot higher than that. So you can see here that this is 15.8 or 9.7, excuse me. And you can see our totals here and the months that we've got on the right hand side. So that's pretty much laying it to interest. But again, it all comes down to what information you're putting on your gross margin to kind of bring that forward. Any questions, Chris? Or
No, you've silenced everyone.
oh, great,
We
that's
had
good.
some
No,
great
it's not.
questions, but now
Yeah.
oh no, here we go.
I was going to do sensitivity, so if want to kind of hold on for a minute, I'll do
No, it's
sensitivity,
okay.
then we can
Yeah,
open up
we've
some
got
questions.
something
Right.
here.
Okay,
So
so
this is from Roger Dunkley. Thank you, Roger. Can you set a land val you need to obtain?
yes, that was that bit here. So here, you're setting a position that you need to attain. Yeah. So you're forcing a land value in, and then it will take out the gross margin. It will give you a reply on that. So this is
Yeah.
saying I changed the mix to 1.9. But if I said, look, Mr. Greedy wants 1.2, or Mrs. Greedy, should we say, he wants 1.2. That's what I need to get to, and then I go back, and that will then force my gross margin. So the conversation is, we know we have to pay X. If that is what it's going to be punted around at, then all my work goes into the mix. Yeah. So that goes into the mix. Have we got the right scheme? Is it planning compliant? And then you can really go into the size, the units, the value, and you're working on that position because you know what the land has to be. Yeah.
Good.
What I want
Steve
to
Alebis says, excellent session, making complex stuff very simple. Thank you, Steve. Great to see you again. That's Steve's from Sovereign.
Good stuff. So one thing we also want to do here is then apply some sensitivity. Okay, so we've got these units in here, and that's all very well. Okay, we've got here our position, we've got our gross margin on development sales. And again, if we've had to force the land value and your boss says, no way, Andrew, you're not going to, in this market, I want 25%. I want a comfort blanket that, you know, what you're saying is there's lots of development going around. I want a bit of a higher gross margin, which is my cushion of getting it wrong. Remember?
Yes.
Trust me, you're going to get it wrong. Working in this industry, you are going to get it wrong. The flows of kind of the market, you know, Savills was predicting the prices of going down 10% last year, wasn't it? How wrong were they? But there was lots of changes in the market that done that. Stamp
The
duty,
long
you
term
know,
was still similar, was still the same.
yeah,
That hadn't changed.
yeah, it hasn't changed. It will be interesting to see what it comes to. So what we can do here is say, my boss wants 25%. He's been around a lot. He knows what the market happens, so he wants a bit more of a comfort. So if you want a gross margin of 25%, then we'll always, in this system, we go back to the land offer. So 25% gives you a 1.5 million new offer to what you said. Yeah. So that's quite nice. If you want any other positions of your kind of net or your kind of total cost, you can do that as well. And the other kind of bit we can do here again is saying, if you want a 25% gross margin, what do we need to do on our sales values up or down to achieve that? Well, obviously I wouldn't be doing this and I wouldn't recommend this, but it's still a figure. If you have been very, very cautious on your sales values, then arguably you need to achieve that 25% gross margin, you need to increase your sales values by 6.61%. That is fairly risky, and it's not something I would tick off, but it's in the system. You can do that. The other parts of it is then saying, have you just thought about what ifs? And that's here as well. So here you can say, what step change would happen either on values or gross margin, and what would that happen? What would that do to our land value? Well, let's just do sales value, And again, let's do a 3%. So if we do a 3% change in sales value, what does that do to our land? And you can see multiples of 3 plus and minus what have effect of that. Obviously positive, we're all going to be okay, we're going to be making more money, we're all very happy. If the sales values start to dip, or we've been over, good on our values, then you can see that if we've got it wrong, our land, what we should have offered for our land, starts dropping off away. And this is where the private sector get in trouble, where the sales price start dropping and their land banking starts kind of falling away. And then they need to be propped up. So this is kind of what we call the gearing effect. A small change in sales value has a disproportionate effect on your bottom line. And you can see that quite nicely on here. And you can then you can really scare yourself off and kind of see if build costs increase as well. And you can see a combine of those, and you can then bring those two into a little report on that. Okay. So there you go. Sorry,
Doomsday report. That'd be quite a doomsday report, wouldn't it?
Well, it's just a view. I mean, it's just a view. I'm always the optimist, but it's nice to view what would happen and can you carry that risk, and then that would then argue the fact what our gross margin should be. We don't want to go really tight gross margin, do we? We need that buffer on sales value, and the more outright sale units we're doing, shared ownership units with the new kind of shared ownership unit coming, there is greater risk. So we just need to understand those risks, and as long as we mitigate it and we've put a comfort blanket in there, then we can say we're professional at doing what we do. A nice report on this actually is the executive summary. I quite like this one. So here is a summary, 1-page printout of everything we've done. You can ask Chris for questions quickly before we finish, I suppose. We can do this in Land Val if everyone's interested. I'm sorry, in Land Val, in ProVal. Sorry, we can do an example of this in ProVal. A little bit more long-winded because there's a lot bit more detail to put in. But perhaps another session we'll do if people are interested. Let us know, let Chris know, or any aspect of this. We can dive into a little bit more deeper and show this either perhaps on a Section 106 offer in ProVal. That'd probably be quite interesting. I've done quite a lot of those for local authorities recently around this area. So we could show that, and we can show a land position in ProVal. So you can do it, but it's just a little bit more long-winded.
Yeah.
Back to the report. So this is the report showing all the units that we've got here, and the high level positions, the return on capital employed, our gross margin, dates, time. You can see this broken down as a square foot. And then what's quite nice, I like, is you can see some key indicators that you've got in here, and then you see the breakdown. So here's our private units here, key indicators for those units, and as well as our affordable. So there you get your affordable key indicators. So you get those two positions in that one appraisal, which I think is quite nice. And you can always print this out. So you can print this out down here. You can print out various different sections of it, and you can use that as your board report for purchasing land, because purchasing land is very different than doing perhaps a full ProVal appraisal. Okay, that you may want to get the totals that you have in ProVal, get fixed on those, get your land buyers or people who are doing this option agreements, negotiation with landowners, working in a system that is simple, back of the fact packet, clear, and because you can manipulate it quickly to understand what you're trying to achieve. But you must do the little bit of groundwork first from ProVal, your net rent plus any grant into that system to set your gross margins or what you're trying to achieve. Okay, happy to help, happy to do this for individual teams. And then I would bring this into SQL. I would then start the process of your planning, your land banking, your procedures, get that into SQL, get it monitored, get it covered. But that's a whole new aspect. So
that isn't. There's some people here who have SQL and Proval and some who don't. I'd say most of the people here have Proval. I've already had two people, Steve Leppo, Claire Orpwood, both said they're interested in the Proval session and also land and Section 106 opportunities in Proval. So I certainly think we should put that in. I thought we were going to do land val and Proval today, but we ran out of time.
It just is the time, isn't it? Otherwise, you're going to fly through it, and I can do it quickly, but it's just a case of you want to just do it kind of methodically, so you can actually get a view of what you're trying to do. And I hope that's given a little flavour and not taking so much of people's time.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand the difference, because we do get asked, what's the difference between Proval and Landval? And Landval, what I'd like to say is it is focused just on land for land teams. Proval is a sophisticated product with a huge amount of functionality and configuration required. You need to be trained on it. You need to be administered on it. That's a big process. With Landval, the training is well, half a day at the very most. Some people don't need training on it at all. They can just figure it all out themselves. It's quite intuitive like that. And if you do have a land team, if you're thinking of putting together a land team, then Landval would be perfect for that, rather than trying to get them all set up on Proval. But of course, Proval can be used as direct.
I think, Chris, that if you're dipping into the private sector, or people who've come from the private sector, I think it's sometimes a challenge for them to understand Proval. And if you're not using it daily, then it can be some kind of barrier to your view of what you're used to in offering land. And I think that's the key part, is what you're used to. You're either using Argus, which is kind of commercial sector, is being used quite a lot, or our land val. It's the main two. There are others, there are other smaller ones, or Excel. You're using your own Excel little spreadsheet, which can be a bit clunky and not quite. I mean, ours is in Excel, but it's been around for a long time. It works. Persimmon always say to us, don't change it. It works.
Yeah,
it does exactly what it says on the tin. We're happy with it. Yeah, we'd love to change it into a more fancy looking bit of kit, and which we will do, but
the cloud.
it does work, and it does exactly what it is meant to do. But private sector people are used to doing that, because it's negotiation, it's agents, it's looking at schemes really quickly. And if you're fronted with a system that is an investment model system like Proval is, with various different tenures, very different kind of phasing, mixing, there's quite a whole lot you can do there. You can get weighed down by it. And from coming from a private sector, looking at that, if I showed my private sector colleagues, friends in the industry Proval, they will go, well, it's not for me. It's just so that's got to be, you've got to understand that if you're doing land-led schemes, get the parameters right that these guys are working towards. So, and let them do what they're meant to be doing. There's negotiation, option agreements, getting front to that piece of land. You want to be early, and you've got money. If you've got money, you've got a great opportunity then to put that on the table and get a good offer. But if you get bogged down by doing the Provals, by big scheme scenarios, then you're going to be less effective. And that's why I think Landval works very well for clients if they've got people who understand it. It's not difficult to understand, it's just the concept of it to offer your land. Okay,
so I've just got a couple of questions before we finish up. It's 11 o'clock. Everyone's going. Well, most people are going now. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're just going to answer a couple of questions and then we'll finish up. Could you manipulate the model to reflect different procurement routes, e.g. construction management versus a D&B contract?
Yeah, it's cost, isn't it? It's what is the cost of this to you? And then putting that on to the different elements, either a total cost in there and saying that's what it's going to be, or it's going to be more fees and etc. There's enough areas in it to model exactly how you want to do it at that high level to get to the gross margin, to get to the bottom line. So you could your cost per unit, you could just put that in as a total and then you're away. If you're doing any other build route, then fine.
So the procurement route could, and this is why Emmanuel has asked, as the procurement route could add or take away efficiencies from your land value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, well, the more you're on tune with your build costs, the greater effect it's going to have on your land offer. Absolutely. I mean, that's what every developer would love to say. That's how much it's going to cost to build that. And if you've got a MMC contract, Chris, you know I love this, and then fine. But it's about scale, isn't it? You know, and then it's the ability. You know, when we get into kind of market appraisals, is how many of those units you want coming to the market at a particular time, and it's got to be reflective of what's happening in your area and what's happening on the ground. You know, you want to turn it off, you want to turn it on slowly, and only build to your available customers coming through the door. And that's what the private sector do very well.
okay, so this is from Chris Duke. He lost connection in part, but most useful. We'll need to look at example where we got to work out how much max to pay for third-party site lines / potential ransom strip. Presumably, this can be built into land val.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a fee. It's another cost. I'm dealing with my own ransom strip actually, from the local authority. So very aware of ransom strips, and that again is due diligence on the offer of your land. You know, and that's where SQL can help you. If you've got a procedure, you've got a set of tasks to do. Have your land guys done that? Can they evidence base? We love that word in development. Have you evidence base that they've had a good site review of it, and then you know if there is any issues on title or local authority involvement or anybody else's involvement. That's a crucial part of buying land, is knowing people who've got the experience to second look at this. And I would always say, and on viability, if you've got a viability test, even if it's in ProVal, get somebody else to look at it. Have that second eye on it. We do that between our team, my consultancy teams. You know, we share kind of appraisals we've done for clients, because you get too involved, you get too in the detail, and sometimes you have to be a little bit objective. But you know, steps on procedures of buying land is important. All of us have come up with, you know, have had issues of buying land, ransom sits, access, you know, title, covenants, churchery, you know, all these things have to be, you know, reviewed. And if you get a proper land procedure, you can tick these off, get them noted, and get someone experienced who knows it.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just laughing here. Chris Duke said, thanks for the answer. Hopefully not the same ransom strip you're both talking about.
It's him who's got mine, is it? Is that what?
Yeah.
I need to negotiate. And then you wait for a local authority to come back to you about 6 months later. Oh, I hope Waverley's not on this.
Bob Pleasance from Onward is one of my favorites. Thanks for the session. I've got to go now. Be interested in a session on how we can judge the value of land and build package. So, Andrew, what do you think about that?
We can do it. Let's do a session. Let's get an example. If any client wants the morning or a couple of hours with me, I'm cheap. Not that cheap, but we could do a couple of scenarios. Let's get a couple of schemes and let's run through it. Let's get into the detail. It's always fun to do that. That's the enjoyable part. Or sorry,
Really?
that's what I enjoy. Yeah. So
yes, viability nerds in the house. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. I think it's a great time to wrap up. And I just thanks everyone. It seems like there's some very happy people here, and we're getting some good comments. So we've done okay, and that's good to hear that we put all this time and effort into doing these things. And I'm just glad they're benefiting people.
Chris, I think we've got a couple of handouts, which is we do a viability workshop. We've done quite a lot of these actually. Me and John Stevens and Paul Christensen, we've done viability workshops. So if you want to get your team together, and some people who are not that interested in the detail, but they want to know the direction of flow and what does it mean, then we've done these viability workshops, and we're doing them online. But if you want to wait until we all back together again, you know, contact us. We love doing them, love sharing knowledge, getting people all pointed in the right direction, and that could really help your land strategy if you're out there purchasing land and what direction of flow we should go in. And you know, we can help you on that. And give you that objective view. Not just about software, it's about kind of understanding those processes and what we can do.
But as the new business manager, and me, myself, Ricky, we want to sell software. So if you think Landval could help your team, if you're thinking of setting up a Landval team, please do get in touch, and I will just we'll set up a demo, and we'll do a bespoke session with you. And the same with ProVal. But I think most people on here are ProVal and Landval customers anyway. But if you're not, we can talk. I'm the person to talk to. So yeah, let us know.
Good.
Right, okay, let's go. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you very much for joining in with us, and we will see you again. Look out for future emails.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.